All right, welcome to Start Deliver webinar. Today we're talking about customer success journeys, and it will be a roughly 30-minute webinar starting off right now. My name is Johan Nilsson. I'm one of the founders of Start Deliver and the CEO. I'll be hosting the webinar today. And we will be covering an agenda of a presentation for roughly 20-25 minutes. And in the end, we will have an open Q&A where you can post questions and we will discuss the topics covered. So please do that. You do that in the Q&A part of the Zoom webinar, and I will take them in the end. Also, the webinar is being recorded and you will get all the material. We will also share some additional material. I will come back to that later on. Great to have you here, and let's get going. Today's topic is journeys, and we want to talk about that because we think there are some challenges with journeys. So the hard thing with journeys, and this comes from our own experience, is that if you do them very general, if you have one journey for everyone, it usually doesn't fit anyone. I've tried that and I got stuck in setting up a model that didn't work, and we had to revise it and throw it out. So that's one end of the spectra. The other end of the spectra is when you do them too detailed. I've also done really big PowerPoint documents with specifics for each customer, and you think you have covered everything, but this document becomes very easily out of date, and you put it in a folder somewhere and you never look at it again. So that's the other end of the spectra, that you do big PowerPoint type of customer plans that when you do them, they're relevant, but very quickly they get outdated and you don't revisit them really. I think that's very common, and I've tried both of these sides. So what we want to talk about today is how do you get into something workable, something you can do in day to day and really get efficient way of working with your planning for your customers. Looking at journeys, I think there is a common concept journeys that a lot of companies talk about, a lot of people talk about, and this is something we picked up online. Typical journey starting from the lead, from leads, from a new customer perspective, moving all the way through the sales process, through the onboarding, and then you sort of look at, in a customer success perspective, you look at renewal and expansion and advocacy and those things. I think this is a common way to look at the journey. But we want to challenge that a little bit, because if we focus in, which we will be doing now from after the purchase, we will not talk a lot about the lead part of a journey. We will focus on the customer success part of the journey. And if you look at that one, we think, is this really the journey we want to talk about? And is this really the customer's journey? I think there's some problems with this model in terms of it's very internally focused. This is what we want to do with the customer. We want them to renew. We want to expand. We want them to be advocacies for us. But that's not really what the customer is looking for. So I think in that sense, it doesn't really help us a lot when we want to work with the customer. And it's also very linear, and it's like it's a sequent process that where everybody ends up being advocates for us, and I don't think that's reality. So we want to change that a little bit, and I think we have a common friend in Lincoln Murphy here that believes in the same thing, which is that customer success and the customer success journey is all about the customer, of course, achieving their desired outcome. If you're not familiar with Lincoln Murphy, Google him, check him out. He has really good concepts on how to think of customer success as an operating philosophy. And in the heart of that philosophy is desired outcome, which is what the customer wants to achieve by working with you and your product. And I think that's a much better perspective to look at the journey from. So this is where Start Deliver also, that's where we base our journey in that concept. But you need to make this more practical as well. And that's where we're going today. So if we take desired outcome as the goal here, then we need to look at a few parts on how to get desired outcome for a customer. And we split them into 3 parts. Design, which is about how to get there. Drive is about what initiatives, what actions do we do? And deliver is about, are we really getting there? And is the customer aware of it? And is everyone aware of it? And are we measuring it? So that's like the general concept that we're working with here. And we also believe it's not a sequence process, it's more an agile process. Anyone working in development knows about the agile process, which is you have to work in steps. You have to break it down, and you have to always look at where you are and take it from there. And that's also how we see a good customer success journey. It's about doing it in steps and making sure that we move forward. So that's like a short intro on how to set up a customer success journey. Now we're going to dig into the details and make it more concrete on how you actually go about and work with customer success journeys. But let's also take a step back, and I think this is something everyone can do. What is a good journey? And I think if you have a few customers, take a few and look at 5, for instance, and say 5 that's been with you for a while. And what are the characteristics of a good journey? Take 5 customers that's been on a good journey with you and list some characteristics. I think it's a quite nice process to do. And we did it, and I've done it before. And usually you see a very big difference between a good journey, of course, and a bad journey. And the good journey, what happens in a good journey? I think you have engagement, you have a customer that wants to do things, you have a customer it's not always smooth sailing. It's not, I would say a good journey is not always smooth sailing. It's a lot of interactions, it's a lot of, they want something, we fix that, we interact, we work very closely together. And in general, I would say like a good journey, you have progress. And the progress also means that the customer usually buys more from you. I think always the best cases, the most happy customers, they buy more because they want more. They want more help. They want to get more value from you. So I think progress is like the unifier for a good journey. And if you look on the other side of it, a bad journey, if you have a bad journey, you probably don't have a customer for 3-4 periods. But a bad journey, we all had customers with a bad journey. And I think the typical thing in a bad journey is that you don't get progress. You do the onboarding, but there's no activity. They don't log in, they don't engage in your product. You try to restart things, but you don't get them going. You try a lot of things, but nothing really happens. So I think like if we simplify things, a good journey with a customer has progress. We develop, we go forward together. It's not always smooth. There can be issues, there can be problems, there can be mistakes, but it's progress. And a bad journey is almost always about no progress. So I think those are key words to look for and to also see, okay, how to make this a practical thing, something to work in. We need to focus on how do we get progress, basically. So moving into the how to design a journey. So starting off in the desired outcome as the Lincoln concept, there's many ways you can phrase this, but I think it comes down to what does the customer want to achieve by buying your product, your service. And you can look at it on a high overall level, and it usually comes down to one of these 3. So they want to increase revenue, they want to reduce cost, or they want to reduce risk. or a combination of these three. So I think those are very general and very high level, and they are not really helpful in the day-to-day with the customer. But I think it's still interesting to look at them, and also if you later on make an analysis of your customers to see where do the most customers fit, in what do they want to achieve. That's the high level part. But you need to go down to the specifics. And usually you can identify a number of specifics that recurs, that most customers do one or two of these they usually have, and they recur, and you can see a pattern here. So define some specific desired outcomes that your company provide to your customers. And it might be just in one of these areas, or it might be in several, but let them be quite concrete. And these are, of course, just examples, but it should be quite detailed, I would say. And preferably, you would like them to be in a percentage or quantifiable as well. So high general, these are a little bit more specific, but still, these are not really guiding us what we should do. So that's like the next step in the journey. It's to set up goals. So they have the high level, what they want to achieve, the value they want to get from your product. You have the next step, which is more specific, more concrete to their situation. And then you have this last part, which is concrete goals that we want to achieve with the customer. And again, this is falling back to this step-by-step thinking, because if we just look at they want to reduce cost or they want to increase revenue, that's too high level, and it's not going to help us in any way, and the customer is not going to really pay attention to that unless we break it down to steps. And when you break it down to steps, you also have to realize, where is this customer today? And you need to know how are they, or if they've been with you for a while and you want to make a plan for them, then you need to look at where are they right now. If there's a new customer, maybe it's more clear for you because you have been part of the onboarding, but you need to look at where the customer is. Are they using the product they have? Are they getting value where they are, or are we in a difficult situation? So you have to start by analyzing where the customer is. Then going back again to what we talked about earlier, good and bad journeys. Progress is when we do things, when we do more together with the customer, basically. And that's one type of goal you can have. You can have like a progress goal. We call it accelerate. You want to do more. You can also have no progress. And this is usually where we also have we spend a lot of time here, I think, as customer success. It's not all about expansion. It's not all about doing more with the customer. I think a lot of the time, maybe even 70% could be spent on fixing things for the customer, because otherwise they don't do anything. They don't. We don't have any usage. We don't have anyone working with our product. So fixing speed bumps or fixing roadblocks is what we call these no progress steps in the journey. Speed bump is, of course, a smaller issue. Roadblock is perhaps a showstopper for this customer. So it's just a different level of goal you have to achieve in order to get progress again. And when we add these together, we have like the high level, we have the more specific, and then we have the stepping stones, the real tangible actions, actionable goals that we want to do. So this is of course just a PowerPoint, but we have a template here, an Excel template that we will share with you, where you can do this exercise and when you can really set it up for yourself. I think it's really good exercise to do. But also, of course, Start Deliver, we have this in our platform. So if you want to do it in Start Deliver, you can work with it straight from the system. Set up these desired outcomes, define the journey goals. You can of course set it up here and make it like workable for everyone in the team, and then you can start tracking it, of course, on customer level. You can see the steps that you've been through with this specific customer, or if we're lacking a step with this customer, maybe we should initiate something here. So this is something you can do in the platform, but we will also provide everyone that's not the customer, of course, with the template. So that's how to design the journey. Moving on, we have our plan, we know what we want to do, we have set the goals. How do we drive the journey, which is the next part. So having a goal, having something that we want to do, of course, is not enough. It's just a plan. Now it's about taking action. And here again, we need to look at, okay, it's of course a difference here. If there is a customer that's doing a lot already, that's engaged, that has a good usage with us, then it's about looking at what more can we do? What can we accelerate? How can we provide more value to you? How can we expand what you do with us? Say more money if that's what you want, or do more, increase your revenue, or reduce the risk, or whatever it is about. So that's one type of actions you can drive, of course. If there's the other part, which is more fixing speed bumps or fixing roadblocks, then you need to look at what is the underlying issues we have here. And this is something we've been talking about previously. You can categorize the issues in different types as well. So you can have a competence issue, which is basically they don't know how to work with your product. You can have technical issues, which is more about integrations, data, that type of thing. You can have way of working issues, which is basically they don't know how to do things. They don't know how this can fit to their way of working. And you can have motivational issues where they don't see the value of working with your tool. Very different actions depending on which box these speed bumps or roadblocks fall in. But you have to have a plan for them, and you have to set up specific actions on these. If we have covered these in previous webinars, so if you want to dig into the more details here, we have them, and we can share them as well again with you. But I will not go into deeper detail on what type of actions you can do. But of course, having journeys and having goals and planning and doing actions, we still need to keep track on, are we doing the right things here? Are we achieving goals? Are we moving forward? Or even if we do a lot of actions, they might not move forward. And that's also part of the driving the journey, is to keep track here. And also, how do we prioritize among these different customers we have, among these different actions we want to drive? So part of the job is to understand and set the plan. The second part of the job is to drive the actions and make sure we do the right actions at the right time for the customer. And I think a key part here for us under the drive the journey is that we are really the drivers here. We as customer success are usually the ones that takes the initiatives, both to make a turnaround with the customer and to accelerate the customer. So both parts requires change, and that's part of the customer success job. Moving forward, one part of the drive is, of course, automations. I know a lot of people are looking at how can we automate more. It's both about being more efficient as a SaaS vendor or a software vendor, but it's also about the customer wanting to be able to do more by themselves, of course. So I will cover some parts on automations. We will touch on it, and we will actually follow up with a more detailed webinar specifically targeting how to automate, how to cater for low touch initiatives in a better way. But still, some general thoughts on how to automate. Look at what things are common for all customers, for all users, that we can set up good automations for. The trial is one part. Sometimes trials are handled by sales, but still, the trial is usually something we can pretty much know what steps the customer or the user should go through. Handover from sales, this should definitely be automated with a good template that you hand over all the things that you've been talking with the customer around, so you get a good start of the customer success part of the journey. Onboarding, I think onboarding is usually very, you can divide it into quite good sequences, and you can pretty much set up a good onboarding automation. Usually you can split it in, depending of course on the size of your how big your onboarding is and how complicated your tool is, you can split it into phases. So you can have 1, 2, 3 phases. A new user, that's also typically a way of where you can automate. New user can be of different kinds, of course. So you can also differentiate between a super user, stakeholder type of user, or normal user, or what you call it. So those are also good common ways of automating. And another part is adoption of new features. If they buy your reporting module, or if they add one of your add-on services, that should also be like a quite good automation, how to get onboarded in that part of the product. So these are common. I think you probably cover some of them already, but I think it's good to list those and look at them in one way, where you can have actually something that fits quite good over the board. Then you have things that are more customer specific, and this is, I think, a more tricky one to solve for. And here you can base your automations on where is the customer in the journey, and based on how the journey is going, of course. And you can automate, you can promote your product. If the customer is doing quite well, you can promote new features. You can send surveys depending on where the customer is, so you get feedback along the way. On the other hand, if you have low engagement in the journey, that's probably, if it's really low engagement, that's probably going to be hard to turn it around by automations. But if there's specific groups, user groups, perhaps you can involve them, perhaps you can do some automation around those groups. So, and you can also look at what we think is really powerful is what we call shareables. So you can share data with the customer, how is things going, both on how they're using your platform and also how the journey is going. If you work with our concept of customer success journeys and talk about giving the customer more value and setting goals that are aligned with what they want to do, I think that's excellent things to share and talk to the customer about. So sharing is something we believe, being transparent is a great way also to increase engagement and also initiate new things with the customer. So those are a little bit general. Tools, we believe strongly in that you can connect a lot of tools here depending on what you prefer and what you have previously. Marketing automation, start deliver, we believe marketing automation is very powerful, but you need good data. You need really good data to make it powerful for your customers, so you know where they are. There is other tools like Intercom and App Queues that have great in-app guides, in-app product tours, in-app messaging that can also be triggered very much based on where you are in the journey. So there's a lot of tools, and just wanted to share a few. And also we wanted to share like just a very simple example on how we actually do things on our side, and we know a lot of our customers do, which is using Intercom, for instance, and messaging. So as part of the onboarding, you probably have a lot of tasks you do internally. Maybe you also have tasks for the customer. But in addition to that, you can add messages, or this can be Intercom. It can of course also be email or that kind of communication. So you can add those as parts of the step. So you don't do everything yourself, but the customer gets things automated from you as well. Another example, which I think is quite important, is that if you have a customer with big issues, you should not send a survey to them. So this is very simple example, but it's if you have a lot of customers, it's going to be hard to, unless you work with this data, to identify customers that are probably, if they have bad usage with you and are struggling in some way, you should probably not send an NPS to them. It's not the right time. On the other hand, customers are doing quite well with you. Those ones you really want to know that, are they really happy, or are they just using it because they have to? So those you should of course target with a survey. And you can have many different surveys, but you need to be careful when to send them and not send them too early, or when the customer is not in a good spot with you. So that's another example where you need to use the customer specific data to get the effect of the automation, basically. So a few examples on how to automate. Moving on to the last part of the webinar, it's about delivering the journey, because I think the key here is, of course, to get closer to the desired outcome. But as Lincoln also talks about, this is an ever evolving thing. So the desired outcome when they first became a customer was probably one thing, but as they get to know you, as they expand, as they set new goals for themselves, as you also provide more things in your product, this desired outcome is evolving. So the good thing here is that you are never usually done with a customer. You can always bring it to the next level. So I think this is a great thing to keep in mind. But on the other hand, we need to see that we're making progress. And one way to do that is to share it, to be transparent with the customer and say, we have achieved these 3 things. What should we do next to increase your revenue more, or to save more cost for you, or reduce risk for you, or whatever the high level desired outcome is. And shareables, as we mentioned, we believe strongly in that, and having like a workspace where you can share things with the customer is a great way also to align around these things and get their feedback on what they want to do more. And then of course we need to track it on a high level. Are we growing the desired outcome for our customers over time? Are we doing that? We should be very happy about our retention numbers and our low churn numbers. So again, it all comes together to doing the right things for the customers. Achieving more desired outcome over time will keep the customer for you. So ending on that note, we will now go into